Well, first up, a very big weekend for the Earth, starting with those Greta Thunberg-inspired climate protests all over the world. It's hard to miss the mass climate strikes in cities across Australia on Friday. Kids let out from school joined passionate millennials and older people wanting change and faster.
It's certainly a very busy few days, and indeed Greta Thunberg is in New York for the UN Climate Change Summit, having made her way by boat, not plane, across the Atlantic from Sweden.
The eyes of the world will be on them. They have a chance to prove that they, too, are united behind the science. They have a chance to take leadership, to prove they actually hear us. Do you think they hear us? We will make them hear us.
Yeah, pretty amazing pictures. Well, our first guest here is actually presenting at the New York summit. His name is Nicolas Hazard. He's founder and president of INCO, a French-based venture capital firm supporting growth of startups in the ESG space. Delighted to say Nicolas is still here at this moment in Sydney. What have you been doing here in Australia?
So we've been launching here a project for INCO, like investing in green tech startups in partnership with Mervac. So basically we're going to fund and help raise this new generation of entrepreneurs. So
Mervac, obviously being the big Australian property company, is this funding, is this ideas? What are you working with them on?
So we're supporting through an acceleration program, so a physical space that we're going to have in Sydney, and we're going to also fund these projects all over Australia.
Also part of your business, I understand, is encouraging the growth and incubation of environmentally and socially aware firms, if you like. Certainly from our government sometimes and from some governments around the world, sometimes they actually ask big businesses not to be talking about these issues. What do you make of those sorts of claims? Is it on the wrong side of history?
I think it's not a question of ethics. I'm not talking about ethics. I'm not a priest. I'm not a preacher. I'm talking about business. And I see that the market and the way the companies are developing and now their big challenge is all about sustainability. Like 15 years ago, you needed to be too digital. Now you need to be sustainable for your clients, because more and more of the clients, they want you to be sustainable, but also for your employees, because 80% of the millennials, so the people, if you want to attract talent, they want to work in a company that has a strong purpose. So if you want to make more money, you need to get more sustainable. In
your time in Australia, the OECD actually just a couple of days ago came out and said that effectively Australia doesn't have a climate change policy. Is that your sense?
I think that there's a huge opportunity now for Australia for creating also jobs in the sustainable industry. I see more and more corporates here that are willing to change and willing to transform their business model, Mervac, but we're also working with Ramsay Healthcare, for example, around sustainability. So I think it's a big opportunity now for Australian companies to
Very diplomatically put, Nicolas. The French are always famous for their diplomacy. When you head over, you're actually giving a speech at the UN conference. Do you think the conference itself, the summit itself, will change much?
I don't really believe in big conferences like this and in big summits. It's a lot of blah, blah and a lot of talking. But I think it's a good moment also for corporates to gather, because I think the change will come from big corporates mainly and from startups and from the entrepreneurship world. And so it's good also to exchange ideas and to gather once a year to see what can be done. And I really believe that yeah, we have all the interest to do so. So I don't expect a lot from the politics globally, but I think that entrepreneurship will make a change.
One of the interesting markets that's been developing, and I think the jury's out on how sound it is this whole idea of green finance and green bonds. Do you think that that's going to become a really meaningful part of the market?
Yeah, once again, it's not a question of ethics. It's really how the market's going to be in the future. And I think that this green and ESG and all these sustainability criteria has become more and more important. There has been a report released by Morgan Stanley a few weeks ago, just showing how American investors, they want more than 50% of these investors want more and more ESG criteria and looking forward to that. So I think the market and the companies need to adjust and to adapt to that.
Would you say that the growth of ESG firms, or at least the demand for ESG firms, is more coming from, say, from directors and from fund managers than from shareholders?
That's an interesting one. I think more and more now it's shareholders that are pushing, because the money doesn't come. And when you see, for example, the CEO of BlackRock, you know, the big investment company, telling a few years ago about like how the future is about sustainability and so he's going to invest a lot in this market because he thinks he's going to make a lot of money through that and not through the classical, let's say, traditional like organization and companies. It's interesting how shareholders are pushing hard, but I think the pressure comes more from the clients and more from the employees, so more from the people, because more and more of the employees, they want to work in a company that makes sense, and more of the clients, and you see also the results for the organization has been able to develop sustainable products. They've raised their market shares by 10%, so you see that the market is ready for that.